Good morning, everyone. Today we will see a new topic, acute viral hepatitis. So all of you know what is mean by acute viral hepatitis. We will start with an historical background of this disease. So this acute viral hepatitis is known to us, that is our mankind, since the Middle Ages, that is between, or you can say the before 15th century. This acute viral hepatitis during the Second World War, it was described PV of two types. That means this acute viral hepatitis, it was classified into two types. One was infectious hepatitis, which was considered to be transmitted through contaminated water, and second one is serum hepatitis, which was transmitted by percutaneous exposure. That means those who were taking some intravenous injection or blood transfusions. So if viral hepatitis offered through this route, it was considered as serum hepatitis. So this classification was there because uh, there were no availability of serological test for this hepatitis viruses, because now we all know that there are different types of hepatitis viruses, but during those time there were no serological tests which was able to differentiate between these all hepatitis viruses, and hence this acute viral hepatitis, it was classified into the infectious hepatitis and serum hepatitis. Landmarks in the history of acute viral hepatitis are discovery of Australian antigen by a scientist Barry Bloomberg in 1965. So this Australian antigen, it is also called as hepatitis B surface antigen. So all you know. So this antigen, it was first discovered in an Australian person. So that's why it is considered as, or you can say it is called as Australian antigen. But technically, it is an hepatitis B surface antigen. Then hepatitis A virus, it was discovered by Frenstone in 1973. Hepatitis C virus, it was discovered by Houghton and its colleagues in 1989. And hepatitis E virus, it was discovered by Ray. So by this you can understand hepatitis E virus, it is a recent virus. So these are the few important landmarks in the history of acute viral hepatitis. So these different types of uh, antigens has been discovered in these years. So if you know what is the meaning by acute viral hepatitis, so it is a systemic infection. So I have uh, written it in a bold that it is a systemic infection. That means not only liver but our other parts of body, or you can say our entire body is involved in acute viral hepatitis. So basically it is a systemic infection, but it mainly affects liver. So even though it is a systemic infection, it mainly affects liver, and it is characterized by parenchymal liver damage. That means those liver tissues which are involved in physiological processes, not in supportive framework, but in functional processes. uh, if the hepatocytes they are involved, those liver tissues they are damaged. So the meaning of parenchymal liver damage, it means the liver tissues which are involved in physiological process, or you can say functional processes, they are damaged by any agent on an underlying normal liver, which produces similar clinical and biochemical features. So this is an important line, because all those agents, even though they are different, when they affect liver, especially the parenchymal tissues, they produce similar clinical and biochemical features. So this acute viral hepatitis, it can be caused by viral infection that we are going to see. Non-viral infection, that means it can be caused by some bacteria or parasites. and other microorganisms. It can be caused by drugs like anticox treatment, that is rifampicin, then toxins, or you can say toxicity of liver, which may be because of some vitamin A or vitamin A hypervitaminosis. Then alcohol, all you know, ethanol, it is also responsible for this parenchymal liver damage and metabolic diseases like Wilson disease and ischemia. So there are various reasons because of which acute viral hepatitis can occur. But most of acute viral hepatitis, or you can say almost all cases of acute viral hepatitis, they are usually caused by one of five viral agents. So if we talk about viral hepatitis, as we are saying viral hepatitis, so in viral hepatitis, among all cases of this viral hepatitis, they are usually caused by one of following viral agents. So one is hepatitis A, which is an RNA virus, hepatitis B, which is an DNA virus, hepatitis C, which is again an RNA virus, then hepatitis B associated delta agent, or it is also called as hepatitis D virus, because this hepatitis D, it usually dependent on hepatitis B for its replication. So that's why it is called as hepatitis B associated delta agent. Then lastly, the hepatitis E virus. So these are the five viral agents which are responsible for almost all cases of acute viral hepatitis. So remember, viral hepatitis, not only acute hepatitis. So when you say acute hepatitis, so this acute hepatitis can be caused by various viruses or bacteria or drugs, toxins that we have earlier seen. But when we talk about viral hepatitis, then the most, or you can say almost all cases of this viral hepatitis, they are usually caused by one of these five agents. So in these five agents, you all can see all are RNA virus except hepatitis B, which is an DNA virus. All these viruses, they cause illness that have similar clinical and pathological features, even though there are different names or different antigens, but they have similar clinical and pathological features. That means the symptoms and the pathological changes in the liver produced by these antigens, they are usually similar, and they are frequently anicteric or even asymptomatic. So meaning of asymptomatic, you can understand. The second word is anicteric. That means no icterus is produced. That means even though there is hepatitis, some patient may be anicteric. That means you cannot see icterus. So there is no icterus in such patients. Then where they differ? So they differ in their tendency to cause acute and chronic infections. So even though these viruses, they share similar clinical and pathological features, but they differ in their tendency. That means some viruses, they will cause acute infection, and some viruses, they will cause chronic infection. So that we will see in next slides. So which are the viruses which will cause acute infection, and which are those viruses which will cause chronic infections. The clinical picture of this acute viral hepatitis, it may range from asymptomatic that we have already seen to the fulminant. That means the onset of this acute viral hepatitis, it will be sudden and severe. And fetal acute infections, they are common to all types. That means all these viral agents, they can be asymptomatic or they can become fulminant, and they can be fetal, right? So fetal means, that means patient may die because of this acute viral hepatitis. So uh, this type of clinical picture you can see in a patient with viral hepatitis, or there may be subclinical persistent infection to a rapidly progressive liver disease. That is, uh, There is a persistent infection, subclinical, in subclinical phase. That means you will not see any clinical features or clinical signs, but you will get some laboratorial findings which will suggest viral hepatitis. So this is persistent. Then again, it can rapidly progress to the chronic liver disease. That means initially it was persistent infection, no liver changes were seen, or you can say no liver damage was there, but this liver damage it can rapidly progress, which may cause cirrhosis and even hepatocellular carcinoma. So even though these viral antigens they may be asymptomatic, but in some cases they may rapidly progress to the chronic liver diseases and may cause cirrhosis and even hepatocellular carcinoma. So this is usually common to the blood-borne types. So it means those viruses were transmitted by this blood-borne route like hepatitis B virus, HCV virus, and hepatitis B virus. So these are the three viruses which are usually transmitted through this blood-borne. So these type of viruses they are capable of producing liver cirrhosis and hepatocellular carcinoma. Then apart from these viruses, there are certain other viruses which are also capable of causing acute viral hepatitis, but they are usually less commonly seen. So, which includes cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus, Coxsackie virus, and adenovirus. So, these are the viruses which are also capable of producing acute viral hepatitis, but they are usually seen in less commonly. Then rare causes of acute viral hepatitis they include herpes simplex and yellow fever, which is caused by flavivirus. So these are also the reasons, or you can say causes for acute viral hepatitis, but they are usually uncommon. So the commonest viruses or agents which can cause acute viral hepatitis, they are hepatitis A virus, hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C, and hepatitis E virus. Now we will see the epidemiology of this acute viral hepatitis. So the worldwide nearly 1 to 2 million deaths are reported because of acute viral hepatitis. That means nearly 10 to 20 lakh deaths are there because of acute viral hepatitis worldwide. The hepatitis E virus, it is the most common cause for epidemics in India and accounts for 30% to the 70% cases of acute hepatitis, and it is also a major cause of acute liver failure. So when we talk about our country, India, the hepatitis E virus, it is the most common cause for most of the epidemics in our India, and also it accounts for 30% to 70% cases of acute viral hepatitis. So among five antigens, hepatitis E virus it is the most common cause for acute viral hepatitis, and it accounts for 30% to the 70% of cases. So even though we hear about hepatitis B virus whenever you talk about acute viral hepatitis, or you can say simply when you talk about viral hepatitis, we usually think of hepatitis B virus. But in India, hepatitis E virus it accounts for 30% to 70% cases of acute hepatitis, and it is also one of the major cause of acute liver failure. So one patient gets infected with hepatitis E virus, it may lead to the acute liver failure. In pediatric population, hepatitis A virus it is the predominant cause of acute viral hepatitis. So in adult population, both male and female, hepatitis E virus it is the most common cause. But when we talk about pediatric population, then hepatitis A virus it is the predominant cause. Dual infections with HAV that is hepatitis A virus and HEV. They have been also reported in children and adolescents. That means a children, he may be infected with both hepatitis A virus and hepatitis E virus. So such cases they have also been discovered, or you can say they have also been reported in our country. Hepatitis B virus HPV infection, it accounts for 15% to 30% of acute cases in India. So when we talk about acute cases, the hepatitis E virus, it was accounting for 30% to 70% cases of acute hepatitis, whereas hepatitis B infection that we generally hear about hepatitis B, it accounts only for 15% to 30% of acute cases. Then hepatitis D virus infection, that is HDV infection, it is found in less than 10% of patients with HDV infection. So that means those who have infected with hepatitis B virus infection, in that case, you may get hepatitis D virus infection in less than 10% of patients. Hepatitis C virus, it is a rare cause of icteric avies. That means acute viral hepatitis, which usually present as icterus, that is jaundice. So, uh, HCV, it is a rare cause for such type of icteric acute viral hepatitis. Majority of acute viral hepatitis episodes, they are anicteric or subclinical. So what is mean by subclinical, that we have already seen, and what is mean by anicteric, that we have also already seen. So the majority of episodes of this acute viral hepatitis, they are most of the times anicteric or subclinical. But when the symptoms appear, they are all similar in different types of acute viral hepatitis viruses. So that we have already seen. So even though there are five different antigens, the clinical features and pathological changes produced by these different viruses, they are usually similar. So the symptoms when appear, they are also similar in these different types of acute viral hepatitis. So if there are symptoms which are produced in a patient, they are usually characterized by prodrome of fever, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, and mild abdominal pain, dark color urine, which is followed by development of scleral icterus. So means the patient who develops symptoms of this acute viral hepatitis, they are usually characterized by fever. Patient may have loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, mild abdominal pain. So abdominal pain, it is not severe. So you will get only mild abdominal pain, dark color urine, and these all symptoms, they are usually followed by development of scleral icterus. So initially you will not, or you may not get scleral icterus. So initially you will get nausea or anorexia, or patient may have fever or abdominal pain, and after those symptoms patient will develop scleral icterus. Sometimes acute hepatitis may be the first manifestation of an underlying occult chronic liver disease. That means a patient may have some underlying chronic liver disease which is not overt, or you can say which is not visible. It is an occult. That means that liver disease, it is not producing any disease. So this viral hepatitis can be the manifestation of this occult underlying liver disease. For example, acute exacerbation of chronic liver disease. So suppose patient has some chronic liver disease and it is not producing any symptoms, and such patient, if he gets infected with this viral hepatitis, then this can become the first manifestation, because it will cause acute exacerbation. Or sometimes acute hepatitis may bring to the light underlying chronic liver disease. For example, acute viral hepatitis occurring on underlying undiagnosed Wilson's disease. So meaning of this sentence is that patient may have Wilson disease, but it was undiagnosed. So when patient if get infected with acute hepatitis, it may also bring to our observation, or you can say to our mind, that patient also has Wilson disease which was underlying previously. This slide usually shows the various differences between all these five agents, uh, which includes various points like onset, chronicity, severity, incubation period, age. On the next slide, we will see the spread of these viruses. So we will see one by one. So first of all, we will talk about onset of infection, or you can say onset of this disease. So we you talk about, or when we talk about hepatitis A virus, the onset of disease, it is usually acute. In hepatitis B onset, it may be insidious or it may be acute. Onset in hepatitis C virus, it is almost always insidious. In hepatitis D virus, it may be insidious or it may be acute. And hepatitis E virus, it is always acute. So in this slide, you can see the hepatitis A virus and hepatitis E virus, they are usually have acute onset. So that we have already also seen that most of the cases, they are acute cases, they are usually caused by hepatitis E virus. So the onset of this acute hepatitis by this hepatitis E virus, it is almost always acute, and also with hepatitis A virus also. So as this virus, they have chronic, so they have acute onset, they does not lead to the chronic infection. So both these viruses, you can see, they are not they are not involved in chronic infection of patients. So both A and E, they will not cause chronic infection. So whereas the remaining viruses, that is hepatitis B, C, and D, they are involved in chronic infection. So because they may have insidious onset, so you can see all these viruses, they have an insidious onset, but some viruses like B and D, they have also acute onset. So because of this insidious onset, they are capable of producing chronic infection. Then severity of disease, it is mild in hepatitis A virus, sometimes severe in hepatitis B virus. So that means it is always almost mild to moderate, but occasionally this hepatitis B virus may cause severe disease. In hepatitis C virus, the severity of disease, it is usually moderate. In HDV, that is hepatitis B virus, it is also occasionally severe, and hepatitis E virus, it is usually mild. So the features of hepatitis A virus and hepatitis C virus, they are usually quite similar. So even in their onset, even in their chronicity and severity of disease also, they are similar. Incubation period, it varies from 2 to 4 weeks in hepatitis A virus, and in hepatitis E virus, it is usually between 3 to 8 weeks. Whereas hepatitis B virus, the incubation period varies from 4 weeks to the 20 weeks, and hepatitis C virus has incubation period of 2 weeks to 26 weeks, and in hepatitis D virus, it is usually 6 weeks to 9 weeks. So you can see this hepatitis B and HCV, they are usually have longer incubation period. Then we talk about age preference. That means in which age virus may cause disease. So the hepatitis A virus, it is usually common in children and young adults. Hepatitis B virus, it is usually common in young adults, those who are involved in a physical relationship, and percutaneous. That means those who are, uh, or you can say, who have taken blood transfusions or intravenous drug injection or any other methods. So in that young adults, this hepatitis B virus it is usually common. Then in babies and toddlers also, this hepatitis B virus it is common. Then hepatitis C virus it can occur at any age, but it is more common in adults. Hepatitis B virus it can also occur in any age and similar to the HBV. That means those who are involved in physical relationship and through percutaneous route, this HDV is common. Then hepatitis E virus, the epidemic cases. So all you know what is mean by epidemic. So the epidemic cases of hepatitis E virus, they are usually seen in young adults, that is between 20 to 40 years of age, and sporadic cases they are usually seen in older patients, that is who are more than 60 years of age. So the epidemic cases they are usually seen in young adults, and sporadic cases they are usually seen in older patients. Now next point, it is regarding spread of these viruses. So I have mentioned some points like feces, spread through feces, blood, saliva, sexual and vertical spread. So hepatitis A virus, it is usually spread through feces, but hepatitis B virus, C virus, D virus, they are not spread through feces. And finally, hepatitis E virus, it is also spread through feces. So you can see the similarity between hepatitis A virus and hepatitis E viruses. So both these two viruses, that is A and E, which are usually common is in India also, they are usually spread by feces. Then blood route, or you can say blood-borne. So hepatitis A virus, it is usually uncommon to spread through blood, but B, C, and D, they are usually spread through blood. And hepatitis E, it does not spread through blood. So the hepatitis E, it usually, or you can say only spreads through fecal route, but does not spread through blood route. So the only B, hepatitis C, and hepatitis D, these are the viruses which are spread through blood. Then, if we talk about saliva, yes, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C viruses, they are all spread through the saliva, but spread through the saliva of these viruses, that is hepatitis B and hepatitis E, it is still unknown. So that means till now we don't know that hepatitis E virus or D viruses they spread through saliva. Then sexual intercourse. So hepatitis A virus it is uncommon. Hepatitis B virus it can spread. Hepatitis C virus it is uncommon. Hepatitis D it can spread, and hepatitis and about hepatitis E virus it is still unknown. So vertical transmission it is not possible in hepatitis A and hepatitis E, but it is possible in hepatitis A and hepatitis D. Whereas about HCV it is uncommon. So that means it can spread vertically, but it is uncommon. So when we talk about the spread of these viruses, the most dangerous virus is hepatitis B, because in these points you can say that hepatitis B virus it is capable of spread through blood, saliva, sexual contact, and vertical transmission also. So only it does not spread through feces, but all through all other modalities it can spread. Then if we talk about prophylaxis of these viruses, so it is available for hepatitis A virus, which is an Ig inactivated vaccine. Then for hepatitis B, there is an hepatitis B immunoglobulin recombinant vaccine. For hepatitis C, no vaccine is available. Hepatitis B, yes, HBV vaccine, it can be used, but not for carriers. So that means those patients who are carriers of these viruses, this vaccine is not useful. And for hepatitis E virus, yes, vaccine is available. So only for hepatitis C virus, till date, no vaccine is available as a prophylaxis. Then if we talk about the treatment of these viruses, so the treatment for hepatitis A virus, it is not available. So no treatment, or you can say the no definite treatment is available for this hepatitis A virus. For hepatitis B virus, yes, treatment is available. So there are various methods or modes of treatment. Various drugs are available, but I have mentioned only one. So it is just for an example. So for hepatitis B virus, yes, treatment is available. So the commonest drug which is used in India is tenofovir. Then treatment for hepatitis C, it is also available. For example, interferon. Then for hepatitis D, it is also available, but treatment for the hepatitis E, it is not available. So for hepatitis A and hepatitis E, treatment is not available, but vaccine is available. So whenever viral hepatitis it is suspected, special emphasis should be given in following disease. So whenever you suspect that patient may have this viral hepatitis, so you should focus on following points. So that in that one is history of blood transfusion. So it will usually suggest this serum hepatitis, or you can say percutaneous route. Then use of intravenous drugs, sexual practices, contact with jaundice person. So that means if we ask that patient, uh, if you have come in contact with a patient with jaundice, so if he says yes, so we can suspect that that patient may have viral hepatitis, and this patient he may have get or he may have got this viral hepatitis from that person. Then needle stick injury, working in hospital uh, in the areas like dialysis or trauma units. So these are the units which are usually exposed to the blood, because in trauma you will see blood loss. So even dialysis also you will see blood purification. So these are the units which are usually involved in or in this unit individuals usually exposed to the blood. Then shared razors or toothbrushes, body piercing, tattooing, domestic type of domestic water supply, because that hepatitis A virus and E virus, they can be spread through contaminated water, because we already know they spread through fecal-oral route. So that's why if the water is contaminated, they can spread these viruses and patient may have viral hepatitis. So the type of water supply it should also be asked. Then finally, the issue of travel to the endemic areas for hepatitis A and hepatitis E. So that means if patient has traveled to an area which has endemic of hepatitis A virus and hepatitis E virus. So while dealing with viral hepatitis, all these points they are very much essential. Acute viral hepatitis, it is characterized by 5 to 10 times elevation in serum alanine transminase with or without serum bilirubin. So most of the acute viral hepatitis, they are usually characterized by elevation of serum alanine transminases between 5 to 10 folds from their baseline. but there may or may not be elevation in serum bilirubin. Then the levels of ALT, that is serum alanine transplant, they do not reflect the severity of acute viral hepatitis. So even though they are increased 5 to 10 times, but still they do not reflect the severity of acute viral hepatitis. So to determine the severity of acute viral hepatitis, estimation of prothrombin time, which is expressed as INR, it is essential. So the prothrombin time, which is expressed as INR, if it is more than 1.5, it is considered as severe acute hepatitis. Because if we know, you all know that various clotting proteins like prothrombin, fibrinogen, then clotting factor 5, 7, or you can say 7 to 12, they are usually produced by the liver. So if liver is not producing enough clotting factors, what will happen? The clotting time of blood will get increased. So if, and it is usually indicated by this prothrombin time, which is expressed as INR. So if INR it is more than 1.5, that means blood is taking longer time to clot. And why this is happening? This is happening because liver is not producing adequate amount of this clotting protein. And why liver is not producing this adequate amount of clotting protein? Because parenchyma of liver is damaged. So this parenchyma of liver is damaged because of what? Because of acute hepatitis. So it is an, you can say, prospective scenario. So if patient comes with symptoms of acute hepatitis, after that if you go for investigation and you found elevated serum alanine transaminases, so it will usually confirm acute viral hepatitis. But to assess the severity, you have to check for the prothrombin time. The chances of fulminant liver failure varies from 0.01% to the 1%. So that means the majority of acute viral hepatitis, they are self-limiting. So that we have already seen that there is no chronicity in this disease. So most of the acute viral hepatitis, they are usually self-limiting. Means after some time they will cause no harm and will not progress to the severity. But the chances of fulminant liver failure, it is only 0.01% to the 1%. Pathogenesis. So under ordinary circumstances, none of the hepatitis viruses is known to be directly cytopathic to the hepatocytes. So that means all those agents, that is hepatitis A to E, they are not directly cytopathic. Cytopathic, that means they will not damage hepatocytes directly. Evidence suggests that clinical manifestation and outcomes after liver injury, they are associated with viral hepatitis, are determined by the immunological response of the host. So that means if a person gets this acute viral hepatitis infection and he has some acute liver injury, so the outcome of this injury and clinical manifestation, it is usually dependent on immunological response of the host. So among the all viral hepatitis, the immunopathogenesis of hepatitis B and hepatitis C, it has been studied most extensively. So even though uh, the pathogenesis of hepatitis B and C has been studied most extensively, but we will focus on hepatitis A and hepatitis E, and to some extent we will also see hepatitis B also. Why? Because we have already seen the hepatitis E and hepatitis A, they are usually commonest cause for acute viral hepatitis in India. So that's why we will focus on this A and E, and we will also focus on hepatitis B also, because it is now an emerging problem. So first we will see hepatitis A virus. So this hepatitis A virus, it is an RNA virus that we already seen, and it belongs to the picornavirus family, which is a non-envelope. That means this virus, it does not have envelope. This virus, it is transmitted fecal-orally, that we have already seen. The infected individuals, that means the patient who have got hepatitis A virus infection, they may be asymptomatic. They excrete the virus in feces for about 2 to 3 weeks before the onset of symptoms. So that means once patient gets infected with this hepatitis A virus, but after that he may excrete this virus in feces for about 2 to 3 weeks before the onset of symptoms. So that means patient has infected 2 to 3 months before. So between these 2 to 3 months, he may have excreted the virus for about 2 to 3 weeks, and after that he may produce some symptoms, and after producing these symptoms, patient may further excrete this virus for 2 weeks. So that means the patient has developed symptoms today. So from today, 2 to 3 weeks before, he has excreted the virus in feces, and from now for next 2 weeks he will excrete the virus in feces also. In rare instances, parenteral transmission via blood transfusion has been documented. So in rare cases also, parenteral transmission has been documented. Large outbreaks of this hepatitis A virus, as well as sporadic cases, they have been traced to the contaminated food, water, milk, and shellfish. Intra-family, that means between family members, and intra-institutional, that means in one institute, various people they get infected. It is this type of spread. They are also common. So intra-family and intra-institutional spread, it is also common. So not only person to person, but within intra-family or you can say intra-institutional, they are also common. Early epidemiological observations supported a pre-delegation or hepatitis A to occur in late fall and early winter. So there are some evidences which suggest that hepatitis A virus, it usually occurs in early winter. No hepatitis A virus carrier state, it has been identified after acute hepatitis A. So that means if a patient gets infected with hepatitis A, uh, he may not go into an carrier state. So it has not been identified till date. The perpetuation of the virus in nature, it depends on non-epidemic and inapparent of subclinical infection, means no other subclinical infection. Perpetuation, it also depends on the ingestion of contaminated food or water, or any imported from endemic areas, and from contamination linked to the environmental reservoirs. So that means perpetuation of these viruses, it depends upon various factors. One is inapparent subclinical infection. Second one is ingestion of contaminated food or water, or if it is imported from endemic areas, or contamination which are linked to the environmental reservoirs. Now, if you see the epidemiology of acute uh, hepatitis A virus, so this virus, it has worldwide distribution. That means you will get this type of virus in all uh, the countries, and it is highly endemic in developing countries. So even though it is present in all the countries, it is usually endemic in developing countries. So it also includes India. So in India, it is hyper-endemic region of hepatitis A virus. There are estimated 1.5 million cases, that means nearly 15 lakh cases of hepatitis A virus are found annually worldwide. So nearly 15 lakh cases of only hepatitis A virus they are found annually in world. And most of these cases they occur in areas of poor oral hygiene and poor sanitation. So why? Because of poor oral hygiene and poor sanitation. Because we already have seen that hepatitis A virus it is usually transmitted through fecal-oral route. So if people will have poor and hygiene and poor sanitation, they are at the risk of developing acute viral hepatitis. Now, these factors for hepatitis A virus are unhygienic condition, poor sanitation, the why this that we already know. Then consumers at high risk food that is raw shellfish. Then people traveling to the endemic areas and those participating in anal sex and intravenous drug abuses. So these are few common risk factors for this hepatitis A virus. Then we talk about natural history and clinical course of hepatitis A virus. The main symptoms of hepatitis A virus they are fatigue, abdominal pain, anorexia, nausea, fever, dark colored urine, jaundice, and diarrhea. So all these symptoms we have already seen. So such symptoms they are the main symptoms for hepatitis A virus. Rarely, hepatitis A virus it is associated with prolonged cholestasis leading to the prolonged icteric illness. So, in some cases, there may be cholestasis which may cause prolonged icterus. Hepatitis A virus never causes chronic infection, so that we have already seen in comparative chart of these viruses. That hepatitis A virus it is not usually responsible for chronic infection and it produces lifelong immunity. So if once patient gets infected with hepatitis A virus, that patient will have lifelong immunity for this virus. The risk of fulminant hepatic failure it is only 0.01% to the 0.1%, which may increase with the age and patient having pre-existing liver disease. So the risk of developing this fulminant liver failure it is only 0.01% to 0.1% unless patient has pre-existing liver disease or there is an advancing age. This is again the natural history of this acute viral hepatitis A. So this acute infection in 90% cases it is subclinical and in 10% it is icteric. So in both the cases there is complete recovery and only 0.1% cases they will become fulminant. So once fulminant hepatitis develop, the mortality is very high that is between 50%. Then diagnosis the hepatitis A virus it is diagnosed by serological test, so which includes uh, anti-HAV antibodies, that is IgM antibodies against this hepatitis A virus. It suggests primary immune response, that is acute infection. So whenever you found anti-HAV antibodies, IgM antibodies, it will suggest acute infection. That is primary immune response. It is already present in the blood at the onset of clinical illness, and it is a diagnostic of an acute HIV infection. So whenever you will get anti-HIV antibodies, IgM antibodies, it is a diagnostic of an acute HIV infection. Titer of this antibody, that means this antibody, it will fall to the low levels within about 3 months of recovery. So whenever a patient has elevated IgM anti-HIV antibodies, those antibodies they will fall to low level within 3 months of recovery. Then, if we found IgG antibodies, IgG anti-HAV antibodies, it will suggest previous infection or vaccine acquired immunity, hence of no diagnostic value. So only IgM anti-HAV antibodies, they are usually diagnostic of hepatitis A virus, whereas IgG it is not of diagnostic value because it will suggest previous infection. That means patient already had infection in the past, or it also suggests vaccine acquired immunity. Then hepatitis A virus RNA, it can be detected in blood, stool, and liver during early part of illness. That means in initial phase of illness, this RNA it can be detected in blood, stool, and liver. But this test it is not used in clinical practice because this excretion in stool occurs for only 17 to 14 days after the onset of clinical illness. If we see treatment of this acute hepatitis A virus, so it includes symptomatic treatment and supportive measures, and no specific antiviral treatment as required. Majority of patients they do not require even hospital admission also, and hence the patient should be advised only the rest and give one normal hygienic diet. Antiemetics they may be given if patient has nausea and vomiting. So the patient who is infected with hepatitis A virus, they only need symptomatic treatment and supportive measures because there is no specific antiviral treatment is required. So if patient has abdominal pain, you can give painkiller. If patient has vomiting, you can prescribe antiemetics. So only the symptomatic treatment is related, and supporting measures, that is adequate amount of water and hygienic diet, it is also needed. Patients, if develops severe acute viral hepatitis, such patients they require hospitalization. The patients with hepatitis A virus should be advised to avoid hepatotoxic agents such as alcohol, oral contraceptive medicines, paracetamol, and NSAIDs. So all these drugs they should be avoided in patients who have been diagnosed with this hepatitis A virus. Now the next part is prevention of this acute hepatitis A virus is provision of clean drinking water, proper sewage system, public education about the hygiene. They are the mainstay of prevention for hepatitis A virus infection because we have seen that this virus it usually spreads through fecal-oral route. So if we do not maintain our hygiene, this virus it can spread easily. So clean drinking water it is needed, proper sewage system and public education about hygiene it is also needed. The infection with HAV it provides long-term immunity, so that we already seen. The highly effective and passive immunizations they are also available. Pre-exposure prophylaxis with inactivated vaccines can give protection up to 20 years. So that means pre-exposure prophylaxis. That means the vaccination in a healthy individual, if taken, it can provide immunity for 20 years. Passive immunization it is used for the post-exposure. That means the patient who are exposed to the hepatitis A virus. In that cases, passive immunization can be used within 2 weeks and should be accompanied by active vaccination. So the passive immunization, it should always be accompanied with active immunization, and it should be given within 2 weeks of infection. Then there are certain indications for this active vaccination, so which includes travelers to the endemic areas, homosexual men, injection, drug users, children and young adults, susceptible patients with chronic liver disease. That means patient has already a chronic liver disease, and he may be exposed to the hepatitis A virus. So such individuals, food handlers, and children in the area of high endemicity. So these are few indications for active vaccination. Then schedule for vaccination. So if children over 2 years of age, 3 dose regimen it is required. That means 3 doses are required between 1 month and 6 to 12 months. 2 dose regimen, that means 2 dose of inactivated HIV vaccine they are needed on day 0 and 6 to 12 months. And those who are above 90 years of age, inactivated HIV vaccine, it can be given between 0 to 6 months of age, no, 0 to 6 months, sorry, so 0 and after day 0, after 6 to 12 months. So if you take vaccination today, that is on 29th June. So after 29th, so this 29th June, it is considered as day 0, and from now after 6 to 12 months, patient has to take second dose of this vaccination. Combined vaccination for hepatitis A and hepatitis B, it can also be used, which contains HBsAg protein and more than 720 ELISA units of inactivated hepatitis A vaccine, which is also scheduled at 0, 1 and 6 months. The post-exposure immunoprophylaxis, that means in that immunoglobulins, they are injected in a 0.02 ml per kg body weight of dose, which are specific to the hepatitis A virus on deltoid as early as possible after the exposure. That means the patient who are exposed to the hepatitis A virus, in that patient, immune prophylaxis, that means immunoglobulin, they can be given, which are usually specific to the hepatitis A virus. The dose is 0.02 ml per kg body weight. So in today's lecture, we will stop here. In next lecture, we will see about hepatitis B virus and hepatitis E virus. So for today, this is an end of hepatitis A virus infection. Thank you.